Hi, I'm John Atack.
I'm Sam Atack.
And I've been threatening for a long time to talk about music. And we wanted, the channel to actually cover the range of topics that we, as a family, are interested in. And it's quite a broad range of topics when you come down to it. And my passion in life, one of my many passions in life, and I have a very passionate life, is music. And it starts before my memory does. As a child, I grew up with the Light programme playing on the radio, and the Third programme. Now these are now called Radio 2 and Radio 3 at the BBC, and they have been since about 1969, so I am very old indeed. And so I grew up with songs like "It was an itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini and what are called novelty songs, and I loved them. I was like 4 or 5, and like Ray Charles singing "Hit the Road, Jack."
Yeah.
What you say? And when I was about 8, the Beatles came. And we'd had rock and roll in the house because my brother Andrew is the legendary Andy Cavan, one of the greatest performers of Buddy Holly songs ever, outside of Buddy Holly, and his own brilliant songs. So he was playing Eddie Cochran and which of course the Sex Pistols did too. They played Eddie Cochran's Something Else, which Led Zeppelin played too. And The Who played Eddie Cochran's Summertime Blues. And Come On Everybody was pretty popular too. Gene Vincent, all of these people. My oldest brother, Robin, was listening to Lonnie Donegan and Skiffle, She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain, all of this stuff. My mum was listening to Mendelssohn every chance she got. And my dad was listening to Mozart, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, and he denied later on Mahler, but he did. He listened to Mahler as well, and Stravinsky. So I, at 8 years old, I wanted to be the singer in the Rolling Stones, but they wouldn't take me on because they got that, what's his face, bloke, who's jagged or something. And, I'd have my pretend microphone and stand on a table and sing that, their version probably of I Just Want to Make Love to You. But we had the first Rolling Stones album, before they'd had a hit or any of that stuff. And of course their first hit was written by the Beatles. That they met up with the Beatles one day and were with John and Paul and were lamenting they hadn't had a hit. And so then and there, I Want to Be Your Man was written, they got it, and they had a hit. Then came the Kinks, and then Pete Townsend loved the Kinks, and you got the Who, and what a great childhood that was. At the age of 11, I was listening to Cream and Jimi Hendrix, and it just kept on coming. Traffic, the Small Faces, all of these wonderful bands. And then King Crimson occurred. Now, Rex has said that I've got to say that the best bands ever were Yes and Gentle Giant. So I've now said it, and he will permit this to be.
Though, of course, Jimi Hendrix said his favourite band was King Crimson.
I don't think he did.
Didn't he?
No, that was you.
Well, you should have said that.
He should have said it, yeah. But they emerged out of nowhere. I can remember seeing the original King Crimson, Giles, and Fripp, on a show called Colour Me Pop on the TV, I think early 1969, so I was 13, and I've never forgotten the song, and I only ever heard it once, and it was dreadful, and it went, her kisses don't get better, they get wetter and wetter, I curse the day I met a 21st century schizoid man. Within a few months this had transformed into this thing, and there is, from there I did start listening to Yes and became, I started playing the drums when I was 15, and for 10 years I was completely dedicated to the cult of Bill Bruford, the drummer with Yes and with the later version of King Crimson for 25 years, and his own Earthworks. And I just listen to so much music. I mean, you can attest to this. I have about, I learned in 1985, a friend called me up one afternoon and said that she and her husband were listening to it, or partner were listening to this weird music. I said, "Oh, can I borrow it?" And I cycled over and got this disc, and it was called Music of the Gothic Era. And it was music of the Gothic era, oddly enough. And it's just this wonderful polyphony, this where, you have Gregorian chant or plain chant, where you have a mass that's sung in a particular line, and somebody, a man called Lernan in Paris, worked out that you could have a second voice singing something else. So you could have two melodies. And his pupil, Perotin, worked out that you could have four. And by the time of Thomas Tallis in the 16th century, you could have 40 different, tunes going on, being sung or played. And this is called polyphony, and it was outlawed in the Catholic Church pretty much, and replaced by what was called opera, which is not what we mean by opera now. Monteverdi comes along and says, well, there was this complaint that the Protestants had started saying you couldn't understand the Mass, though Luther was having Masses written in Latin that polyphonic, so I don't see what the problem was. But there were some Calvinists who were like, didn't like this, so you had to be clear. Now, the point is, in the Mass, the what you'd sing is a single line. So the polyphony, they're just singing like Agnus Dei, Lamb of God, or Kyrie eleison, Christ is risen, and you just sing that over and over again. So I don't know what the problem was, but only the Portuguese kept on writing polyphony from about 1600, because the King of Portugal was really into it. And so Manuel Cardoso, for anybody who wants to look up fantastic polyphony, was writing in the Portuguese court at that time. I love Baroque music, which is what opera is the beginning of. Monteverdi, J.S. Bach, through to Vivaldi, on to classical music, which properly is the period of Haydn, Telemann, Mozart. The Romantic music that begins with, probably with Beethoven, and then the incredible music of the late 19th century, the orchestral songs. I deeply love Sibelius, the Finnish composer, Stravinsky, the Rite of Spring, which I heard when I was about 14, just absolutely blew me away. I like bluegrass. I like cowboy songs. Through, what's his name, T-Bone Burnett, I came to actually enjoy country music. Yes, I admit it, but not necessarily all of it. The less dogs involved and the less whining. I've gone back to rock and roll and listened to Elvis and really loved the first Elvis album and things like Heartbreak Hotel, which inspired Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones. I love swing jazz. I love Duke Ellington and Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday, Artie Shaw, Benny Goodman. And then the music that developed out of that, the bebop, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, Charlie Christian, who's not mentioned as much as he should be as an originator of that. And then what Ella Fitzgerald did with bebop, while Louis Armstrong was turning his nose up at it. I love Louis Armstrong. Just what an incredible. Sidney Bechet, the great clarinetist of that period. And on right through, trip hop by Portishead, or currently Elbow, NWA. We're not allowed to say their actual name. Just some remarkable, wonderful things have happened in music. And so this is an introduction to what hopefully will be some discussions about particular pieces of music. But what are we listening to at the moment? We're listening to this week. Today we were listening to Ray Charles, an album called The Great Ray Charles, which is an instrumental album where he shows that not only was he the founder of soul music, but he was also an incredible jazz pianist. We've been listening to Tony Joe White. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful music, particularly the later albums. Same with Johnny Cash, the late albums, just with Hurt On and those kind of things, of which Beavis and Butthead said, "When's it gonna rock?" Well, come on, what else have we been listening to this week? We've had Freddie King and Albert King, Lulu Reed, who I'd never heard before. My daughter 2 weeks ago gave me this fantastic album with this wonderful blues soul singer, Lulu Reed, on. It reminds me of Etta James. B.B. King, we've been listening to as well. In this household, you know, and I'm listening to Palestrina in the evenings, who's a 16th century polyphonic composer. So, just for the heck of it, and for anybody who's interested, we will talk about the specific periods of music, which I think are, you know, we'll probably better take one piece at a time, and you're going to have to go and look this stuff up. But I'm going to have to add in that in Valentine's Day 1970, I was 14 years old, I saw Pink Floyd for the first time. And I'd just like to celebrate that fact that they were absolutely astonishing. And we've been to see the Marcus King Band, who what? So good. We saw Anna Popovich, who's great locally. But we also saw
King Crimson.
We saw King Crimson. Now, this was in November 2018. It was thoroughly expensive. Cost £70 a ticket, which is, you know, nigh on $100 a ticket. And I saw Jimi Hendrix, The Who, Led Zeppelin, The Doors, Santana, Bob Dylan. I've seen Eric Clapton. I've seen a lot of people over the years.
Jeff Beck.
Right, okay. I'm no longer talking to him. On my birthday, in 2017, I think it was, you've got the ticket somewhere here. He and his brother went to see Jeff Beck. They didn't tell me. It was my birthday, and I didn't get to see Jeff Beck. I went with a mum. And he had... who was playing drums for him? Go on. Vinny Colaiuta, who I've never seen, who is certainly one of the greatest drummers who ever lived. Who was singing for him? Paul Rogers, formerly of Free and Bad Company, one of the greatest singers in the world. And they didn't even tell me. So we're going to end off here on a sour note. I'm going to go and beat him severely.
Also Elbow.
And yeah, they went and saw Elbow. And I've got all of Elbow's albums. I love Elbow. It's like, no, we'll piss her dad off, you know. So you're a bad child, and I think now that you're 18, you can go out and earn your own living and find a tent in the park to live in, because you're a terrible person.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But King Crimson, the King Crimson we saw was an 8-piece band with 3 drummers, with, of course, only Robert Fripp, the guitar player from the original King Crimson, because there's only been Robert Fripp in all of the King Crimsons. Though he does different things as Robert Fripp. So at the moment, you can see a great YouTube of him with his wife, Toya Wilcox, dancing Swan Lake in a black tutu.
It gives you an idea of what King Crimson's all about.
Yeah, why Giles and Fripp were never successful. How did they do it? But they had Tony Levin, he played with Paul Simon and was Peter Gabriel's bass player and double bass player for a long time. Just an incredible virtuoso. Also with King Crimson since 1980. Fripp and Gabriel must have had a deal about that. Yeah, Fripp had actually been in the Gabriel band before reforming King Crimson under the name Dusty Rhodes and played behind a curtain, we're told. Very odd man in some ways. They had 3 drummers, including the astonishing Gavin Harrison from Porcupine Tree. And as a drummer, being sat there right in front of him was really quite... a
non-drummer being sat.
Quite a treat. But 2 other drummers, Pat Mastelotto on the end, and the amazing Mel Collins. And these are people who played with different King Crimsons at different times. Mel Collins was headhunted back into King Crimson because he was playing with the 21st Century Schizoid Band, which was a band of former members of King Crimson who weren't Robert Fripp.
Yeah.
And Robert Fripp went, I quite like the way that he plays. I'll have him back again. So, go and have a look at DGM, Digital Global Music, online and see what King Crimson are offering, and you might like it and you might hate it, but we loved it, and we will have more to say about this along the way. I'm John Atack. He's Jimi Hendrix.
I'm Sammy Attack.
Thank you so much for your time. Goodbye. It was an itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini.